Hello everybody, my name's Molly. I'm 24 and I live in the UK. Some of you may know me already from BookTok, where I started posting videos last year. I just kind of made it a goal for myself to start posting on YouTube this year, just because I talk a lot, and sometimes on TikTok you have to condense what you say quite a lot and not add as much detail in. So I thought it would be nice just to do some more talkative videos on YouTube and just kind of share my love of reading with more people. So the first video that I'm going to be doing, as you can probably see from the caption, is going to be a reading wrap up for 2024. So let's get into it. Okay, so purely for this video, I am going to go through like the physical copies I read just because I did lose track of some of my Kindle reads last year. So the first books that I read in 2024 were the first 5 books of the Shatter Me series. Now, I was a bit disappointed with this read, only because I read the first 5 books. I think it was Shatter Me, Destroy Me, Unravel Me, Fracture Me and Ignite Me, and at that point I just decided that that was enough of that series for me. Unfortunately I found it to be, there was a lot of words but not much substance in the video, and I kind of, in the series, I feel like it was kind of a little bit overhyped, maybe because it was a YA book and I don't tend to read them as often, so it might just be that that's why I didn't like that series as much. So yeah, I rated that series a 2.5 overall. Yeah, I don't really have much other to say on that. I would say if you wanted to read it, definitely give it a go, because you might love it, but just for me it wasn't my favourite read, that's all. Okay, so the second books that I read were part of a series, but I read the first 2, and so they were If We Ever Meet Again and If the Sun Never Sets by Ana Huang. Now, I didn't hate these books at the time, I did quite enjoy them, but looking back on them now, I can't remember a single thing that happened. I know that it was a romance, and that's pretty much all I could tell you, so I think my rating for them would be 3.5. That's what I've written down based on when I read the books, but I don't remember finishing that book and being like, oh, that was so good. It was pretty neutral, but I would definitely recommend reading. I don't think it was as spicy as her normal books, so I think that's kind of why I was a bit deflated once I read that series. Okay, so the next book that I read, I promise these aren't all negative, I am going to get into some positive ones. I just had a bit of a rough start to the year. So the next book that I read that I was also really disappointed with was Divine Rivals. Now, I love the plot of this, I love the idea and the actual storyline. It just took me about a month to read, which for me is quite a long time. I just felt that I didn't feel very connected to the characters. Now, whether that was because it took me so long to read, maybe that had an influence on my rating, but yeah, I just remember thinking at the time, I can't wait for this to be over. So I'm not going to be reading the second one, unfortunately. If you think I should, definitely let me know. It might be that I just read it at the wrong time and the second one's amazing, but as it stands at the moment, I am in no rush to pick up the second book in that series. Okay, so then the next trilogy that I read, there is actually a series that comes before it, but I didn't read that one first because I didn't realise at the time that I'd read it. So it was the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Now, this consists of Once Upon a Broken Heart, A Ballad of Never After and A Curse for True Love, and I absolutely loved this series. I've actually lent it to my younger cousin to read it now, so I'm hoping she's going to love it as much as I did. I just thought it was so whimsical and just made me feel really happy. I think the third book was my favourite one in the series, so I rated them 4.5 for Once Upon a Broken Heart. I rated A Ballad of Never After for 4 and I rated A Curse for True Love 5 stars. I absolutely love that series and I would recommend anybody to read it. I'm not sure whether I'm going to go back and read the Caraval series just because I've already read what comes after it, so it might almost spoil it for myself, like I might have spoiled it, but I have also heard really good things about that series. But the next book series that I read during 2024 was the Kings of Sin series by Ana Huang. So it's King of Wrath, King of Pride and King of Greed, and I actually really enjoyed these. One thing that I will say is if you like a big storyline to go with the romance, it's probably not for you. These are very, very like heavily romance, like romance based. There's not a whole lot of plot other than the romance, but they're very good. They're quite easy reading, and yeah, I would really recommend them. So the rating for these ones, so I rated King of Wrath 4.5, King of Pride 3.5, only because as much as I love this series, Kai, I'm really sorry you weren't the guy for me. I think he was just a bit too nice for me to be like fully invested in that story. But then I really loved King of Greed again, so that kind of brought the series back up again for me. I think overall I'd rate it like 4 stars for this series. If you liked the Twisted series, then I think you'd definitely like this one. I think I might have actually preferred this to the Twisted series. Okay, so the next series was actually a reread for me, so based on that I'm sure you can guess what I rated it, and I'm sure you could probably guess what it is as well. So I reread the ACOTAR series, and for me this is just, it's the first ever fantasy series that I read. I just find it so captivating, and like leading up to the winter time or like the early parts of the year, it's just so cozy. I think it's one of my favourite books, and it's got a special place in my heart just because it was the first book that I read that made me enter my fantasy era. So yes, absolutely love these books and highly would recommend. I rated them all 5 stars apart from A Court of Frost and Starlight. I think that one was like a 4 for me, only because there's not much action going on, do you get what I mean? But I can also appreciate and love the story, and I understand why it's there because it's nice to have some positive scenes for the characters. But yeah, my favourite in this series is actually ACOWAR, A Court of Wings and Ruin, which might shock some people because I feel like everybody's favourite is A Court of Mist and Fury. But yeah, that's just my favourite book in the series. I absolutely love this series though. Highly would recommend it to anybody. Now, the next book that I read was a book that came out in a series last year, so you may have heard of it. It was called One Day, and it was by David Nicholls. Now, this book actually shocked me because I really did enjoy it, and I never read the series because I watched the series because I wanted to read the book first. And I'm really glad that I did. The one thing that I will say about the book, which not put me off but kind of threw me off a little bit, was it's very long written. Like, it's quite a chunky book. My friend's borrowing it at the moment, but I think it's about this big and it's very long. I understand that it's long because it goes through the different ages and like the different years of the people in the book being alive, but I just found that it almost dragged a little bit at certain points. But the twist in the end of that book is totally worth it. If you haven't seen the TV series, I highly recommend reading the book. Because I really enjoyed it and it's very good. Okay, now the next series that I'm about to show you, I am currently doing a reread at the moment. It is my all-time favourite ever series, and if you haven't read it, get out from the rock that you've been under and read it. So it is the Boys of Tommen series. Now, I only have 3 in the middle here and I have a valid reason. So my friend's borrowing Binding 13, so I'm currently rereading that on my Kindle, but also Taming 7 is still on my shelf because I read all of the books at once, and then because they're quite heavy and they're quite long, I think I got a bit, not overwhelmed, but I needed a little bit of a break. So what I'm doing now is I'm rereading the series and I'm going to complete it because I need Gibbs's story. Like, Gibbsy is my favourite character in any book ever, like funny wise. I just think he is absolutely hilarious, and the roller coaster that this book like series takes you on, I've never ever experienced with another book series before. Like, it's so up and down and just emotional and makes you laugh and makes you cry and makes you angry all at once, and I just think that Chloe Walsh needs like an award for these books because they live in my brain like all the time. So yeah, 5 stars for every single book in the series. Obviously I can't talk for Taming 7, and my favourite in this series was probably Saving 6. My favourite was Redeeming 6. I just absolutely love Joey's story. I love how you get to see it from the other perspective, and yeah, I'll never get over this series ever. Okay, so the next book that I read was kind of a bit of a different genre for me, as you can probably tell by the books I read already, but it was Never Lie by Frida McFadden. Miss Frida, I absolutely loved this story. I can't even put into words how much I loved it. So the only other like thriller that I've read other than this is Verity and The Housemaid, so Verity's by Colleen Hoover and The Housemaid is by Miss Frida. And yeah, I just thought that this completely took me by surprise. I didn't expect the ending at all. And I just don't understand how she does it. Like, when I'm reading these books, I just think, how have you come up with that in your brain? Like, I could never put the pieces together in this book. If I'd read it again and again and again and I'd never read the ending, I would still not have put together the ending, if that makes sense. So yeah, absolutely love this, really recommend, especially if you want to dip your toes into thriller, because it's not really intense, it's not really horrifying or anything like that. You're just like, what on earth is going on? So yeah, definitely pick this one up if you haven't already. And I rated this one 4.5 stars. So as you can tell, I'm quite a heavy BookTok reader. Like, most of my recommendations come from BookTok. But one day I was just walking through like the bookshop and I saw this book and I thought I'd give it a read. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is like a Hades and Persephone retelling. So it's kind of follows along the stories of the Greek gods, and really liked it actually. If I'm honest, I can't remember much that happened in it now that it's been a couple of months since I've read this book. However, I remember at the time really enjoying it, and I literally read it within like a couple of days. So yes, highly recommend this one, and I rated this book a 3.5 stars. I would be curious to read it again and see if I still have the same opinion on it, because it's been quite a while and obviously now I'm like, I can't remember anything about it. But yeah, really enjoyed it when I read it and would highly recommend. Now the next series, hear me out. So if anybody read Jacqueline Wilson when they were younger, you probably share the same love as I do. So I reread the Girls in Love series. Look how pretty these covers are. So Jacqueline Wilson actually brought out a new series, or a new book, called Think Again, and it's based on these characters. So these are like YA children's books, late children's, definitely early teens books. So it follows three friends, Ellie, Magda and Adine, and she's brought out a new book which is an adults book based on these characters as adults. So I thought that was so cool, because I was obsessed with Jacqueline Wilson when I was younger, and I was like, I need to get this book as soon as it comes out. So of course I had to do a reread of it, and when I bought the book I actually won Jacqueline Wilson's competition, and her illustrator, or the illustrator that works with her, drew me like a personal portrait, which is now framed on my wall and living there forever. It's my most prized possession, so I am forever grateful for that. There is a short on my page if you wanted to see it a bit closer up, because I appreciate it's quite far away there, but yeah. Anyway, sidetracked, back to the series. So yeah, it's not the most detailed book in the world, because of course it is for like a younger audience. However, it touches on quite touchy subjects without being too in-depth. Now, if you read Jacqueline Wilson as a child, like me, you're probably traumatized. As much as I love her stories, I just remember like the illustrated mum is like ingrained in my brain. I picture it all the time. I just remember being young, reading it, loving the book, but also being like, this girl, what is going on? So yeah, highly recommend Jacqueline Wilson books actually. They're really good. And I really enjoyed this one. I think I rated the series like a 3.5 altogether. That is of course based on the fact that it's YA, and YA isn't my favourite thing in the world, but I just wanted to kind of remind myself of what happened in preparation for Think Again. So yeah, do recommend these. Okay, so the next book series that I have here was my first ever sports romance, and I was talking to my friend and she was like, you need to read these books. So it is the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. So I have only read 3 of them at the moment, but I will say I absolutely love this series. Garrett Graham, man of my dreams. Also Dean, love you so much. I think the second one I was a bit like not that it wasn't good, it's just he wasn't my type of guy. But yeah, absolutely love this series. I was laughing my head off, and highly recommend. They're sports romances, so I think it's ice hockey. Yeah, ice hockey. And they're just really easy reading. So I was in a book slump after the Jacqueline Wilson books, I think. So picking these up again just made me really get back into reading quite quickly. And with it being a series, I just binged the whole first 3. And I was like, I don't want this series to end yet, so I'm going to have to take a bit of a break. But yes, definitely recommend. So I rated these ones. So The Deal was 5-star, The Mistake was 4-star, and this one was 4.5. So yeah, really highly recommended series, and would suggest to anyone really. I don't, obviously within the adult range because they're quite explicit. Good if you like a good sexy book, but yeah, definitely would recommend these books. Now the next book, I was disappointed, but not for the reason you think. So I read Iron Flame. Now, the reason why I was disappointed is because when it first came out, everybody was posting saying, oh my god, that was so anticlimactic, like it was nowhere near as good as Fourth Wing, so I put it off for ages. When I tell you this was like one of my favourite reads of last year, believe me, like I can't believe that I put it off so long, and I'm so annoyed at myself for listening to everybody and not reading it, because one of my friends told me to read it and she was like, why haven't you read it yet? Like it's so good. And I was like, oh my god, when I read it I was so angry that I put it off. Also, we have Onyx Storm coming out soon, so this book was very fitting, and I'm gonna have to reread this one again soon, so that I can read Onyx Storm. But yeah, highly recommend the series. If you haven't seen this series, I don't know where you've been, but definitely read it. It's got dragons, it's got fantasy, it's got enemies to lovers. It's just like, yeah, highly recommend this series. I think it's a bit controversial, but this is actually, for me, better than ACOTAR. That's how much I love this series. Like, it's my all-time top fantasy series. And don't ask me to pick between Binding 13 series and this one, because I don't have an answer. I think they're both my favourites for such different reasons. But yeah, favourite along with Boys of Tommen. Favourite, best. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stars. Definitely read it. That I read after this, I don't have a physical copy because my friend is borrowing it, but it was actually The Inmate by Freida McFadden. This one I did really enjoy, however I didn't love it as much as The Inmate. The Inmate? No, I didn't love it as much as Never Lie, so I would definitely recommend reading it, especially, like we said, if you want to get into thrillers, or if you're in a book slump. Freida McFadden is one of the best people ever for book slumps. I find if I'm ever in a book slump and I read one of her books, it really helps me just get out of it, crack on with reading, and I also really enjoy the story. So Never Lie I rated 3. No, The Inmate I rated 3.5, and I won't go into detail about what the story is, but just keep an open mind when you're reading it. If you're trying to figure it out, just think outside the box, I would say, because it's not quite what you expect. The next book in my 2024 reads, I'm a bit conflicted about. So it is The Crimson Moth. Now, if you're outside of the UK, I believe this is called Heartless Hunter, and I'll tell you the reason why I'm conflicted. So this was everywhere. I remember seeing it all over my social media, and then I read it and I was like, I'm bored. So I would say for me the book really picked up around here, and by the way, this is the end, so this is all the beginning. It was just a lot of this happened to him, this happened to her, this happened to him, this happened to her, and it was kind of like that the whole way through the story. And then the last 50 pages maybe, it really picked up, and there was so much chaos going on, and I was like, I don't know where to look, I don't know what to do. So I probably will be guilty of reading the next one, but I just hope for more of what we saw in the end of this book throughout the whole thing, because if it is like what the beginning was like, I don't think I'll be able to read it again. Like, I don't think I would pick this back up. Doesn't mean it's not for everyone though, please don't come for me, it's just my opinion. But yeah, it was average. So I think at the time I rated this one 2.5. yeah, it unfortunately just wasn't my cup of tea. Now, the next book as well, I was also a bit downhearted by. So I saw it everywhere. So many people like it, so positive. I love this book. It's amazing. And this book was actually Happy Place by Emily Henry. Now, I will actually say I don't know if Emily Henry books are for me. I've read a couple. I think I read Book Lovers and I was like, oh, that was average. And this is how I felt about this book. But because of the hype that this book got, I think it made me even more frustrated that I didn't like it. So one thing I will say is I loved the plot and the actual idea. So they go on holiday and they have broken up. I think they were engaged. They've broken up and they haven't told their friends that they've broken up. So they're all in this like big friendship group. They go on holiday to a holiday home that they used to go to when they were younger. And for some reason they pretend that they haven't split up. So their story kind of goes from there. Loved that idea of it, but the actual story just fell a little bit flat for me, I'm afraid. I did read it on holiday, so I don't know whether the vibes were too matchy or whether I wasn't in the right headspace to fully take everything in. But yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend this to anybody. And I rated it 1.5 because I really struggled with this book. The next books, however, I get very, very, very excited to talk about, and that is the Throne of Glass series. Now, as you can see, I have only read 5 of these books. So I read all of these all at once. And then I had to go back to uni, back to placement, and it was just not... I was like, I cannot face doing a tandem read while I'm like working full time because I'm not going to take everything in. So my plan to finish this series is to wait until I have a summer holiday where I have a couple of weeks off and basically binge. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I absolutely love this series though. I will say Crown of Midnight for me, I was a bit like, oh. But other than that, Heir of Fire, I absolutely loved. Queen of Shadows, absolutely loved. And as you can see, The Assassin's Blade was first for me. I truly believe that that was the best way to read the series. I tried reading Throne of Glass first a couple of times and I just couldn't take it in. I just couldn't concentrate. However, once I read Assassin's Blade, because they're novellas and they're so quick, it really hooked me in on the story and I felt like I knew the world a little bit. So yeah, I felt totally engaged by the time I started Throne of Glass, and it really, really, really cleared things up a little bit for me. So if you haven't read Throne of Glass yet and you are looking to start, I would personally say to read Assassin's Blade first. However, I do understand that that's very controversial and everybody has their own favourite reading order. So just kind of maybe start and see which one fits best for you. Because some people like Assassin's Blade third for the emotional effect, but I just found that because it was so quick paced, it really drew me into the story. Yeah, so this was a 4.5 star for me at the moment. I understand I haven't read the big Kingdom of Ash yet, so maybe if I come back it may be a 5 stars. We will just have to see, and I will let you know what I think when I do finally read it. The next book that I read after Throne of Glass was Confess by Colleen Hoover. Now, one thing which I think about Colleen Hoover is she is good at getting people out of slumps. Her books are so easily reading and just, you don't need to do a lot of thinking to follow it. And after Throne of Glass, I was a bit mind blown is the only way I can put it. Like, I felt like I didn't have much capacity and I was really struggling to pick up another book. So Confess, I thought, was a great book just to kind of get me back into reading. I mean, it wasn't the best book in the world, it wasn't the worst, but I rated it 3.5. And if you know Colleen Hoover stories, like, they're all quite emotional but not like too intense. So yeah, this book does have like really cool artwork in the middle of it. So what I will say that one of the main characters is like an artist. So yeah, very interesting. And it's good for if you're in a slump or just want some easy light reading to do. Okay, now the next books that I read were part of a series. So it was this series. I don't know if it has like an overarching name. The Summer series, that's literally what it's called. I haven't got the first one. My friend's borrowing that from me at the moment. So I really like this actually. This series really took me by surprise because I'd never saw anything about it on TikTok. I don't know if I just missed the memo with these. But when I read them, I was really, really surprised. I thought they were really good, and yeah, just kept me engaged, and I actually binged the whole series kind of within a few days. They're really easy reading, and I think, I can't remember fully, but I believe that they're either on holiday or they're living in like a holiday place, and it's where they used to hang out as kids all the time, and it's based on like a friendship group, so it's almost a bit of found family can't speak. It's almost a bit of found family elements. I can't say that quickly. But yeah, I definitely recommend this if you're just looking for a light romance, and it's quite nice to have a couple of characters. It's almost similar to like the Deal, like the off-campus series, because you follow kind of each character in the friendship group. But yeah, really like these. So the next book that I read, I will take full blame for this because it's completely not a genre that I normally read. So it was The Virgin Suicides. Now I believe it's like a classic book. I read it pretty quickly, to be fair, but I will just say when I was reading it, I had no clue what was going on. I still have no clue what was going on during this book. But I don't really want to actually give it a rating because I feel like my rating wouldn't be fair, only as I haven't read any classical books before. So this kind of went in one ear, out the other, completely over my head. That's all I'm going to say. I don't feel like I can add anything useful to this review. Sorry. Continuing on with things that I have no idea what was going on, the next book that I read was Pucking Around. Now, if you have heard or seen anything of this series, I will just tell you that it is wild. Like, it was my first book that was part of this subgenre, so if you know what I'm talking about, you know. Maybe I'm just too vanilla for this, I don't know. I just remember finishing reading and being like, what the fuck was that? That's pretty much all I have to say. I did enjoy it, to be fair. Like, I didn't hate it, but I don't have much meaningful to say because I kind of was a bit like mind blown after this book. But I did like the reading, and the actual like ice hockey side of it was really good. I liked the way that it was all incorporated together. But yeah, if you like spicy books, give it a go and let me know what you think. If you don't, this book is certainly not for you. So yeah, take with that what you will. Also, because of the wild factor that this was, I rated it 3.5 stars. Yeah. Okay, we're getting to the end now. We're nearly there. So the next book that I read, I only have one of them with me because my friend's borrowing my other book. I need to get like a library card, or like have my own library card, the amount of books that I lend out to people. But it was the, what's the series called again? Shepherd's King? The Shepherd King. So this is the One Dark Window 2 Twisted Crown series. I loved this. So I saw quite a few things on TikTok saying it was really good, and I saw quite a few things saying like don't waste your time with it. I was completely shocked. So I've never read a magic system like this ever in my life, and I was completely hooked on it. I think I read both books in like 2 days. I did struggle with the first one at first, so I tried to read that one a couple of times. I just couldn't get into it. I don't know if I just wasn't right in like the right headspace, but when I read it for like properly got into it, yeah, didn't put it down, read the second one straight away, and would recommend to everyone. One of my friends that I kind of went to school with a couple of years ago, we started like a little a little book club. It's just us two, but basically like we read books and then we go to a coffee shop and kind of talk about the books, and that was our book club book. So I was like, I need to read it. And yeah, really enjoyed it, and I believe she did as well. So I rated both of those books in that series 4.5, which shocked me. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this book, was shock, because I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, and I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I'm on nearly the end book. This one, please don't hate me for saying this. So I really enjoyed the book, but I think it was overhyped, and if you can guess what it is, I'm sorry. So it was Quicksilver. I did absolutely love this book. However, I think because of the hype that it was got, everybody was like, oh, it's better than ACOTAR, it's better than Fourth Wing. I went in with unreasonable expectations with this book. I think that's what happened. So I was reading it, and I was like, yeah, it's good, it's good, it's good. But there was never anything that I was like, oh, I am in love with every single page. I'm in love with every single character. Like, I just felt it was good. I enjoyed it. But I need to stop listening to TikTok so much, basically, because I think I kind of spoiled it for myself. I didn't read any spoilers or anything like that. I obviously knew who the like main love interest was and things like that. But yeah, I just think it didn't compare to maybe some of my favourite books. But that's okay, because everybody's got their own favourites. I will, of course, be reading the second one. I really enjoyed the story. Yeah, just note to self, do not over hype or have too high expectations for books, because you may get yourself let down. And that's all I'm going to say about this book, because I think everyone and their mums are fed up of me or people talking about this, because it's everywhere. The penultimate book, so I'm really excited for this one. If you can see my bookshelf up there, there's like this whole row is a single book series, and that is the Shadowhunter series. So I started the first book. One of my friends started reading it recently and she absolutely loved it, and I read the TV series when I was a bit younger and was fully invested in it, but the books or the series is only based on the first 6 books. So when I realised, my brain clicked that actually it's like a book series, I was like, oh, I have to read this ASAP. So I read the first one. I will advise you that it is YA, so don't be expecting loads of smut and stuff like that, because it is YA, but it's still so good. There is elements of romance in it. The creatures and just the imagination in these books is incredible, and I cannot wait to get through the series. Also, like, I don't know if you can see the covers on the back, but all of them are just so cool. They've got different like characters on each book, and yeah, I'm a bit, what's the word I'm looking for, like bewildered by these, because I just love them. I feel like I'm so happy to have them as part of my collection, and I will update you. If you wanted me to, I could do like a reading vlog of like reading through the different books in the series, so let me know if that's something that you guys would be interested in, because I would be very happy to do that. Also, I'm not sure if I said, but that book for me was a 4.5 stars. I don't want to set it at 5 just because I don't know what's to come yet, so we will see. And the final book that I read in 2024 was Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. Now, this book completely took me by surprise as well, because I saw, so the beginning of last year, saw so many like positive things about this book. Everybody was loving it, and then give it a couple months and everybody was like, oh, this book was not worth my time, I really didn't enjoy it. Tell me why. This was like one of my favourite books that I've read. Maybe a bit dramatic, but I absolutely loved this. I love the characters. I love the storyline. The twist, like 3/4 of the way through, I was like, I need to read as quick as possible. Yeah, it really took me by surprise, this book, and I'm so happy that I read it, because I had this book for ages and ages and was debating chucking it away, and I was watching a YouTuber, I can't remember who it was now, I feel like it was Destiny, and she recommended it. I was like, okay, I'll just give it a go before I chuck it out, and this will not be leaving my bookshelves, I'm sorry. So yeah, definitely, if you've been putting this book off for ages, read it, because it is worth it. That's all I have to say. So that is the end of my reading for 2024. As I mentioned, I did basically only include the books that I have in physical copy. But yeah, if there are any of these books that were part of your favourite reads, then please let me know. Or if you completely disagree with my opinion, I'd love to see your comments. And if there are any books that you think I should read going into 2025, please leave them in the comments below or send me a message, so that I can try and review them for you guys, see if my opinion is the same as yours. But yeah, thank you so much for joining my YouTube channel. If you're even still here, please make sure to like and subscribe, because that would mean a lot for my channel and helping me grow in the future. And yeah, I hope you have a lovely 2025. I can't believe we're in 2025 already. Thank you.